right, everybody. Welcome, family. Welcome to another exciting edition of A Shot of Wrestling, the interviews. Now, if you haven't done so already, follow us on all forms of social media at A Shot of Wrestling on Facebook and Instagram, and Shot of Wrestling No A on Twitter. You can also contact us via email at inbox@shotofwrestling.com or dial it up 619-343-3005 and leave your comments on a Shot of Wrestling hotline. Now, we say it because we believe it. Wrestling brings us together, and today is no different. Today, the boss is in the building, the hardest working ring announcer in the business, Mark Adam Haggerty. How are you, boss?
I'm great. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm enjoying my evening tonight talking with you.
Oh, we're gonna get into it. There's a lot to cover. How was your life before you got into this crazy world of professional wrestling?
How was it? Well, not as hectic, I'll tell you that. I wasn't nearly as tired all the time.
Did you have a regular 9 to 5 before you started pursuing your passion?
Oh yeah, I went to college. I went to college for English literature and language arts. I wanted to be a teacher, but when I was in college, I started doing my student observations, like my in-ring, my in-ring. Listen to me, I've been wrestling too long. My in-room, my in-class observations, where you kind of like just sit back and watch it, like how it's done. And I fucking hated it so much, man. I hated it so much. And I felt guilty, you know what I mean? Because by that point, I think I was like a junior in college. I was almost a senior, and I'd wasted so much of my parents' money. But I graduated with my degree nonetheless. And I kind of like, at that time, I was working in restaurants and hotels and stuff just
Mm-hmm.
in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I stuck with it because I didn't really want to do anything else. So I ascended the ladder in hospitality as much as I could.
Oh, really?
The two things that I really got into that most people know about me, that I've written about, that I've talked about at great length before, is I worked in politics right
Mm-hmm.
up until I got into professional wrestling. I was the speechwriter and press secretary for a few different candidates in Southern California, a few statewide politicians, and a couple of councilmen and women in Long Beach, California. But then the one that everyone likes to talk about is that I used to grow weed. I used to work in the medical marijuana industry. I did that for
Really?
6 years. Yeah. I grew weed. I managed a marijuana collective in Long Beach, California, on Wardlow Avenue, at Wardlow and Orange, called the Organic Market Garden. The
Mm-hmm.
building is still there. It's a yellow building across from Lana's City Limits Cantina. It was a very fulfilling job, and I really loved it. But the thing about that is it's a very uncertain marketplace, especially with the federal government and the state government, and one too many crackdowns from the state government, and or the federal government rather, and it becomes kind of a nuisance. So I actually transitioned from working in weed into working in politics. And then from working in politics, I saw an advertisement online to write about wrestling for a dirt sheet, and I started doing that. And then I started podcasting, and then I went to a wrestling show, and I said, "Hey, your announcer sucks. I can do that better than him." And I didn't say it like that, but I said
But you
it
believed it.
basically. I mean, what I said was, basically, I went to a wrestling show, and this is another thing I've written about and stuff before, but if people are really interested in my career, they can go to bodyslam.net. I write a column there every week. Basically, every single week, I write a different chapter of my career in
Mm-hmm.
order of how it all has happened. But I went to a show as just a podcaster, and a dirt sheet writer. And what they were doing is the announcers were doing commentary, but they were doing it on live house mics over the PA. And I always call it like Brother Love on Boy Meets World style, because that's the way he was doing it. Like, it's like, "Oh my God, Vader! Handshake the Snake Roberts!" You know what I mean? So that's always my thing about that. So I told the promoter, I was like, "Hey, look, if you ever want to do that shit like better, I podcast, I could set it up, I can sing it the audio, this and that." And he basically said, "Well, why don't you come and do it?"
Wow.
And that led to me announcing and ring announcing. And another promotion started hiring, and it's led to 37, yeah, 37 promotions, not 37 dicks, 37 promotions inside of, 2.5 years. So it's been a really weird transitional pattern that I've had throughout my career of careers, I have to say.
Well, the way professional wrestling has been going in the last few years, I think you maybe even be able to go from politics to wrestling to hopefully one day again back into politics.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't know if you've seen, but I've launched a campaign at one of the
Mm-hmm.
promotions that I work for. There are right now Haggerty 2019 T-shirts and buttons available. If the people listening right now go to prowrestlingtees.com/Haggerty, T-shirts are there, and people that buy the shirts now get a free political button while supplies last. So, but you're right about that. My dad was actually the mayor of the town that I grew up in. So,
Really?
yeah, I've
What kind of
had
responsibilities does a mayor have?
in a very small town in Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
not many. It's not even a full-time job that you even get paid for. It's kind of
Oh,
yeah, my dad always kept like his regular job. We didn't move, we didn't do anything like that. It was just like go to town meetings every week. People complain about their leaves not getting picked up. Um, it's really kind of it. You bang a gavel. My dad could marry people. He still can. You know what I
that's
mean?
cool.
Yeah, I guess. But like, so could like a ship captain or someone with a diploma they've printed from the computer. So
Actually, to
it
be
is what
honest
it
with you,
is.
my wife is an ordained minister, and she could marry people.
So
So,
do you think like I'm being a dick right now for belittling it?
no, not at all.
Because I
Um,
was belittling my dad, not your wife. You know that.
no, not at all, not at all. But I think you have a great voice and a great presence. Have you ever thought of being ordained and marrying people in the ring one day?
No, no, I feel like it wouldn't even count. I feel like it wouldn't count because I wouldn't believe it. I would, I'd be like, do you really? Wow, I can't believe you said I do. That's crazy. Look at you, look at her. Wow. All right, whatever, man. Okay, I get it. Uh,
You'll be
but
talking them out of it.
I have to say, like, I have thought about like emceeing wedding like receptions and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like, all right, guys, coming to the floor for the very first time, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. and Mrs. or Mr. and Mr. or Mrs. and Mrs. It doesn't really matter. It's 2018. You know what I mean? Like, I could do that kind of thing. But who knows? Like, I don't know if I could be around weddings that often.
Well, one of my closest friends is getting married next year in May. So, who knows? Maybe we could bookmark.
Well, you could bookmark, get a bookmark and bookmark. Hey, I might be like way more famous by then or like way less famous, who knows. But you should double down and hire
I
me
sh-
now.
yes.
That's what you should convince your friend to do. Tell him book him now because if you book him now, who knows? Next year he might be signed somewhere
Yeah.
and you'll have this famous ring announcer or who knows? Maybe I'll just really need the money next year.
Well, we'll be responsible for revitalizing your career. Who knows?
Yeah, that's how everyone dreams of coming back from the gutter. Wedding, oh, you're the wedding singer. Ow! It's a
Yeah.
quote from the Wedding Singer movie. Anyway, no, I always think about ways to like, spin this shit off. I've had people offer me gigs to announce like MMA fights and stuff like that.
Oh, that'd be pretty
Uh,
cool. Is that something you'd be interested in?
it's not that I'm not interested in it. It's that most of those things fall on Saturdays or Sundays or nights that I'm already doing wrestling shows. I would love to find like bookings that are from Mondays to Thursdays. Like I don't like high school lacrosse. I don't give a fuck. Like I'll announce whatever. Just it's tough because everyone that wants to book me for those other things
Mm-hmm.
is generally on the weekends. I recently got booked for to announce a mud wrestling show, a drag queen
Hey.
mud wrestling show,
All right.
and
That sounds interesting. Where
and
is it at?
it's I believe I don't want to give too much information because it is sort of tentative. I mean, as far as like the location and everything,
Okay.
but I believe it's going to be in Brooklyn. And then the other is a lip sync tournament, which is more drag queens. Hey, that's what happens when you're the gay ring announcer. You dig? It's a lip sync tournament, I guess, which is like a regular tournament, like a fighting tournament, but with lip syncing. So that'll be interesting to announce. I don't think I give weights and whereabouts from that.
Now, just looking back, like let's say 10 years ago, is there any advice that the you of today would give like the you from 10 years ago?
So me from 10 years ago, I would have been 22 years old. I would tell me, and this is like with all sincerity, don't smoke so much weed. Like smoke a little, like smoke weed for sure. It's good for you, and that's just hey, this is advice for everyone. So smoke weed. It's good for you. It helps you, in many cases, relax and expand your mind and stuff. But when you're 22, 23, and it becomes like all you're focused on, it can really screw up your life.
Mm.
It took
Mhm.
me like way too long to finish college. It took me way too long to move out of my parents' house, and I didn't make my debut in professional wrestling until I was 29. And the reason I didn't do that, with all like sincerity, is I didn't move to East Coast until I was 29, and that's when I got linked up with all these wrestling people. So whatever, but who knows? Like if I got my act together and I wasn't such like a stony baloney dude in his mid 20s,
Mhm.
who knows? I probably would have made my debut in wrestling earlier, and who knows where I'd be now? And hey, I could be completely wrong about that.
Yeah, you never know.
If
You're
it
right.
because I'll tell you right now, I was dating a girl for 5 years, and the reason we broke up is because I smoked so much weed and I just couldn't get my fucking act together.
Mm.
And when she broke up with me, that was like the cue for me to be like, "Uh-oh, time to ship up or shape out." And that's kind of when I got everything like on track for the first time. But I think sometimes like the double edge, the other side of that is like, man, if I hadn't, like, who knows, I might have married this girl and then I'd be
Imagine.
this like closeted gay man married to a woman with kids. So everything in life happens for a reason. So 22-year-old Mark, don't smoke so much weed, but smoke weed, hey, who knows? And try wrestling. Do it earlier. Do it
Try it
earlier.
earlier, yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like I just didn't jump into it early enough.
Well, since the topic of weed has come around, I have to ask because
Am I
uh
high right now? No, I'm not.
no.
Why would you ask me that? No, I'm honestly not. I'm just exhausted because it's 10 o'clock at night. And as I pointed out to you before, you're like, oh, well, what do you usually do at 10 o'clock? I'm like, well, to be honest with you, Green Man, I'm usually asleep at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, I'm glad you're here with us tonight. But that wasn't my question because obviously we're here at a shot of wrestling. We're big drinkers. And when I was
Okay.
experimenting with marijuana early on in my college years, I never found the right balance of being able to drink and smoke, and it always just ended very badly. Like, is there a secret to it?
No, I don't really drink. That's my
That's
secret.
a secret.
Uh,
You can't mix the
no, I,
two, from my
you know,
understanding.
Okay, so like I want to be an open book to everyone, especially like when it comes to stuff about weed in 2018 when it is such like it's a thing that people are embracing to
Yeah.
a greater degree. I, like most kids, I drank throughout high school. Like I started drinking when I was like 15, 16 years old. I was drinking those Mike's Hard Lemonades and those Smirnoff
The
Ices. Then you
Zimas.
drink beer. Zimas, exactly, in like someone's shed, like, ooh, I drank one and a half Zimas, and then you like get sick as fuck. But like, by the time I turned 21, like, yeah, we can go to bars and stuff now, but like, it wasn't fun to drink anymore. And that's kind of like I didn't smoke a lot of weed when I was a teenager or anything. I started smoking because I didn't really like drinking anymore. So,
Mm.
and that's kind of my thing. When I turned 21, I went hard. I went to all the bars for like 6 months to a year. But by 22, 23, I just wasn't about it anymore. I think part of it was like it drained my bank account, and that was kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But I just also didn't like, putting on weight. I didn't like, getting sick. I didn't like waking up feeling. I didn't like going to bed at like 3 in the morning and stuff like that. I didn't like half the people I was hanging out with, and I realized that they were only hanging out with me because I was buying them drinks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of started smoking weed, and I started gravitating toward a different crowd, and that was the weed smoking crowd. And I don't know what it was. So for me personally, I really never drank too heavily when I was smoking a lot of weed. The two kind of things never really intersected for me. Now, have I had, throughout like the course of my life, there have been birthdays, Halloween celebrations, etc. I mean, in those cases, you're getting blitzed, on purpose, and it's kind of like, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there really is a balance, but I
No.
also, and I want to make it like really clear, for anyone, like, as someone who's worked in the weed industry, like to me, it's more of like a relaxation agent. It's not the kind of thing like I don't smoke weed to get like fucked up or anything like that. I drink to get fucked up. Don't get it twisted. Like if I'm gonna have a beer, I'm gonna have 6 beers.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? So like to me it's kind of like, oh man, like how do you balance like Advil and alcohol? Like it's the same kind of thing to me. You know what I mean? The two just don't intersect for me personally.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that. I don't think that I will ever find in a nice balance. And if anybody knows a nice balance, hit us up on our social media because my wife has some good stuff from a coworker that we're contemplating if we should smoke up
Or
because
you just
apparently
give it
it's
to
good.
me. How are you? I mean, or you just give it to someone.
That's honestly been the conversation. I'm just like, dude, we're not going to be able to use this. It's been 2 months already here. Like, we have a baby. When are we going to just like light up? Like, it's not happening, you
We have a baby.
know?
That's the pull quote from this episode. We have a baby. When are we just gonna light up?
Like, yep. But professional wrestling, let's get back into that conversation because
Yeah.
I feel like the stars align. Like everything felt in the right place when a shot of wrestling joined B Plus Player Radio because it was about a year ago around this time that we had just wrapped up an interview with Sean Donovan, who we had a nice combo after the interview about just podcasts and what we're doing because he had his own podcast featured on B Plus Player Radio. And then, as luck would have it, that following that weekend, we got to meet you because you were ring announcing for LAW up in Spanish Harlem. And a week later, the show debuted on B Plus Player Radio. So I want to ask, what was your vision for B Plus Player Radio early on? And is there anything that we all want to look forward to in the upcoming years?
Yeah, so the story with B Plus Player Radio is I just started it. I started it against my will, and people like to make fun of me for that. The people from back then do. I was, as I said, a dirt sheet writer, and I wasn't doing that full time. I was doing it for fun because I loved wrestling, and I really loved it. I watched Raw, SmackDown, like I fucking bit torrented everything. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. And the guy I worked for at Daily Wrestling News, he's from dailywrestlingnews.com, Wrestling Inc., lordsofpain.net, TWNP News, a whole bunch of different sites.
Yeah.
He says to me, he's like, hey, dude, you should do a podcast. And my immediate response was, no, that's stupid. And he's like, why? And I said, because everyone has a podcast. And by everyone, I mean Jim Ross. I mean Steve Austin. I mean Chris Jericho. I mean Cole Cabana. And need I remind you that those four guys I just mentioned know a shit ton more about wrestling than I do.
Yeah.
So why in the fuck would I have a fucking podcast? Nowadays, like it seems like everyone does have a podcast. Back then, in 2014 or so, it was still, I mean, it was still pretty like, there was still a lot, but it was like you could name like those four as being like the four big ones. And I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't want to embarrass myself was really all it was. So I put it out of my mind. I visited some friends here on the East Coast for Christmas. This is back when I was living in California, remember? And I said, I told my friends about this whole thing, and they were like, "Hey, that sounds like fun. We should all do it together because even if like we're idiots and people don't like us and they don't listen, who gives a fuck? Because one of us lives in New Jersey, one of us lives in California, one of us lives in Florida. We can all at least Skype together and talk about wrestling. And if no one listens, who cares? We can all talk to each other. We're friends. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It gives us an
Mm-hmm.
give. That was our thing. Is like it gives us an excuse to talk to each other once a week. So let's just do it. So we did it and we put it together, and it was just called the B Plus Player Podcast. And the name was, if people, because a lot of people don't get it at the time, Daniel Bryan had not yet retired,
Right.
and Stephanie McMahon kept referring to him as a B plus player. She kept saying, Randy Orton and people like that, they're A pluses, and Daniel, you're always going to be a great B plus player. And I thought that was just such a fucking great name, the alliteration, like just the way it sounded. So the B Plus Player podcast was born, and it sucked because all podcasts suck at first because no, we don't know what we're doing. You know what I mean? None of us do, and we
Mm-hmm.
and we grow, and it gets better, and no one should be judged by the first thing they put out into the world. So we started it, and we just kind of spun things off, like friends joined, like old friends from our childhood, different wrestlers, like Sean Donovan did his show for a while. The Aesthetic Males, Damian Gibbs, Beefcake Charlie, Mike Dell,
Mm-hmm.
J Enterprise, they did a show. Pat Buck and Ryback did a show on B Plus Player Radio. Right now, we've got Pepper Parks and Andy Williams. We've got a stand-up comedian by the name of Patrick Bean. We've got you guys. We've got Wrestling IQ 101. So basically, what happened was we had the one podcast. We started bringing in a couple of our friends. We rebranded it B Plus Player Radio, and then as we started bringing in all you guys, the network just grew. And that was never really my vision for the network. As far as my vision for the network, I didn't really have a vision for the network. As I said, I kind of started it against my will,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like it just kind of kept growing, and I like that. I think it's great. I've always said it's this like stronger together type attitude where you'll see, like, whenever I tweet something for your show, I'll tag all the other shows in it, and whenever I tag something for their shows, I'll tag you, and you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
it
Mm-hmm.
creates this ecosystem where we're all very supportive, because there's so many small podcasts out there, and it's really easy to be competitive with one another. It would be really easy for you and the Wrestling IQ 101 guys and High Spot and A Shot of Wrestling and whoever else. It would be easy for all of us to say, like, be at a podcast convention or at an indie show or something, and all of us to have like 4 or 5 tables all next to each other, and for all of us to just be sneering at each other, just fucking
Mm-hmm.
hating each other because we're fucking just like splitting up the marketplace. But it's even easier than that for all of us to work together and share the whole common goal, because it is like, Michelle Obama said, it was stronger together. You know what I mean? Was that
Yeah.
Michelle? I think it was. That's my vision now, is to just grow it like that. My vision for the future, and what I'm trying to do right now, is I'm trying to expand beyond professional wrestling, and that's no slight against wrestling. It's always going to be a wrestling company or a podcasting network, but we've got a show now called The 90s Nut, which is a 1990s retrospective all about like Nicktoons and video games and stuff like that. It's
Ooh.
hosted by a guy named Lance Madewell, who's the promoter of TIW in Lanesboro, Massachusetts. We've had football shows in the past. We've got a movie show on there right now, hosted by my buddy James Torpy. And I'm just trying to expand in all sorts of directions. And so, I mean, if there's people out there that that are listening right now, and you've got a podcast and you're looking to join up with a network, I mean, if it's not a wrestling show, it doesn't mean that I'm not like interested in adding it to the feed, because I'm trying to make this an all-encompassing pop culture multimedia enterprise. And I'm also trying to do more with the video end of things. I've been producing my own vlogs recently, and I know a lot of the other podcasts are
Yeah, it's
doing
been
the
pretty
video
cool.
stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, it's a tough question to answer, but I hope I answered it somewhere in
No,
there.
absolutely. And I think that's one of the main reasons that it really drew us to you and made it such an easy decision to be like, yeah, we want to be part of B Plus Player Radio, because, like you said, you just had a positive outlook on professional wrestling and, the strength in numbers. And we never, even early on in our podcast before we got onto the network, we always were all about how could we help elevate each other. We don't have to be, even though we're the same wrestling podcast, we all have interviews, we all have our opinions, and in a way we're a little bit different. And I think that's what keeps it fun and keeps other people interested. But at the same time,
Absolutely.
we should be able to support each other because we all love the same thing. We all love wrestling, and we could talk about it for days.
Absolutely.
Now, you are, like I said in our intro, you're one of the hardest working guys. You're always out there. You're putting miles on the car. You're selling merch. You're doing promos. You're working on original content for your own podcast, for the network, for YouTube now. Has that type of self promotion ever been seen as a negative thing because you are a ring announcer and not a wrestler?
Not really. I've had one person. Okay, so I've had two people ever, and I'm not even gonna name them because they're not like even worthy. I put like one of my prolific end of weekend posts up on Facebook about working 3, 4, whatever it was shows,
Mm-hmm.
and this dweeb who's just like I said, he's not worth even mentioning. He said something to the effect of like, "Oh, you're wrestling now? I didn't realize. When did you start training?" And it's like, dude, don't be upset because you work. And hey, look, I'm not gonna slight anyone, but if you're gonna be one of those guys who only works shows for the guy who trained you, right? Because it's some cult mentality
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, if I don't work for him, then who's ever else is gonna book me? Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like you work once, maybe twice a month. There's no way you're ever gonna make a living based on the money you're making. I don't care what far away, bitter, cold city on the outskirts of nowhere you get booked. Okay, you're a fucking loser. Okay, and it doesn't matter if I train because you're a fucking dweeb. All right, that's all I have to say about that guy. The other guy was another ring announcer,
Okay.
and he saw that I had my pro wrestling tees store up, and he said something like some old school, like it's like, oh, whatever happened to ring announcers, like blah blah blah, like staying to the same. It's like, you know what? It is what it is. When it comes to positive stuff, I will fucking put people over. I will I will mention people because I mentioned those two guys to my buddy Mark Carino, who's a graphic designer. He's also one half of the Heavenly Bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And he says to me, and this is a quote, I'm never going to forget it: fuck that, bro. If people are willing to buy your shit, you better have it to sell. That was his
Hell
fucking
yeah.
quote. And you know what I mean? Like, if you are like if you're a ring announcer or a referee and people want to buy your shirts or your 8x10s and stuff like that, then fucking sell them. But if they don't be a fucking mark for yourself and bring them around. When I started selling merch, and I didn't want to, I was told by Robbie E. flat out. We did a show in Whitehall, New York, and we left, and two or three people had asked me if I had shirts, and I just said no because I too was under the impression like ring announcers shouldn't have merch like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Robbie said to me on the way back, he goes, "Bro, why don't you have like 8x10s or shirts or anything?" And I told him, and he's like, "Dude, fuck that. Think about how much more money you would have walked away with tonight if you had shirts and 8x10s or stickers or anything." And
Mm-hmm.
he was right. So I hit up the notorious Dan Ram, who who everyone hates, and I actually got my merch from him, believe it or not. And I got some shirts and I got some stickers and stuff, and I sold out of them immediately. And I started with 8x10s, and I sold out of those, and then I graduated to shirts, and no one's really ever given me grief about it. I'll tell you, the person that gives me the most grief about it is probably me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think about it a lot. Like the way even you just said it, I was like, yeah, dude, exactly. Like, I believe me, I think about it. But no one really says anything. And my thing too is like, I don't. If you're ever at like, you've only been, I think, to like one show that I've worked.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any merch at that show. When I have my shirts and stuff, like I don't have a table set up. You know what I mean? Like I don't, you've got all the wrestlers with their tables. There's not a Mark Haggerty table set up anywhere. I have my shirts and my stuff either in the back or underneath the commentator table or anything like that. And if
Mm-hmm.
someone walks up to me and says, "Hey, Mark, do you have any of your shirts? I saw them on Facebook. I saw them on Twitter or whatever," I'll sell them a shirt right there. But I'm not going to advertise them at the show.
The same advice that you were given about like selling your shirts, we received early on too, where it was like, go for it, like if people want it, then go out and put it out there.
And that's one thing I'll say too is like I prefer ring announcers or podcasters or referees that have merchandise to like backyard wrestlers or like these dudes who have been training for like 6 months, and it's like all of a sudden they've got a shirt, and it's like, dude, why don't you like keep working on how to actually wrestle? Why don't you work on how to get in and out of the ring without tripping over the bottom rope
It's not
and then
easy.
sell a t-shirt? yeah, man. I'm a millennial. Like, we're all part of that fucking millennial generation. So I'm not going to be one of those, like, oh, millennial. But there is something, man, about like these kids. They're like, oh, man, I got 2,000 followers on Twitter. I got a T-shirt on tpublic.com. I don't have to learn how to wrestle. It's like, oh no, what is this? Sean Donovan's right. But
Yeah.
no, I don't. I'm glad I have merch because it helps me pay my bills.
Well, it's cool fucking merch. And it
Thank
was
you.
it was meant as a compliment because you do have a lot of great product. You know, I love the bookmarks,
Oh,
and
thank you. Well, those are free to anyone that goes to any of my shows.
I like the your shirts with your mug and your little man bun. Looks great.
Uh, yeah, I've got those. I've got the Haggerty 2019 shirts. I've got the new pink one that I'm just like cheesing on the front of. It's cool because I've got some exclusive shirts at other promotions. Like Dynasty has a like a Bullet Club knockoff that I hate because I hate Bullet Club knockoffs, but people love them and
Yeah.
they buy them. So
Hmm.
fuck it, who cares? And it says Haggerty Club. And there's of course we got the 2019 buttons at TIW. Yeah, man, I try and do it different. I've got actually some new stuff that I'm going to be introducing.
Are you sick and tired of dealing with confusing calendars? Having trouble remembering what days come after one another? Feel like giving up entirely? You could do that. Or you could get the brand new 12 Months of Mark, a calendar featuring pro wrestling personality Mark Adam Haggerty. We've got everything, all the days, and all the months, including but not limited to January, February, and March. Featuring photos taken by world-renowned ringside photographers such as Brian Kay, Frankie Kurtz, and more. That's the 12 Months of Mark, available now through the end of January 2019 while supplies last.
12 Months Mark available at all filming events, shipping worldwide. For more information, visit Mark Adam Haggerty on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or email markadamhaggerty@outlook.com.
There's a lot of roles that you've had through your career already. You're a little bit more than a ring announcer. I feel like that's why a lot of promoters like you because you're a character. You know, in a world of professional wrestling, you know, there's not that many characters, and you're one of them. What advice
Well,
do you have for aspiring ring announcers, managers, or even podcasters?
Well, like one of the things that I always say, and people are probably getting sick of me here, like, wow, sick of me hearing it, sick of me saying it or hearing me say it or whatever, is to stay consistent with your content. I'm doing an interview right now with a magazine out of the UK. It's like a correspondence thing, like they send me questions via email back and forth. And
Uh-huh.
one of the ones I just answered was about this. And the two things, as far as advice that I'd give to people in that regard, or to anyone in entertainment, to wrestlers, even, to whomever, is one, stay outside your comfort zone. Get outside your comfort zone and spend as much time as possible out there because that's where you're going to come up with your best ideas. People wonder, it's like, oh man, like I've never like made $1 million. I've never gotten signed to WWE. I've never this, I've never that, I've never. Well, that's because you've been doing the same goddamn thing for 25, 30 fucking years. Get outside your comfort zone, try something else and work towards that. Okay. So that's my one thing that I tell people all the time. There have been so many occasions in the wrestling business where people have said, hey, Mark, do you want to do X, Y, and Z? And in my mind, I'm like, no, I don't. It's either far away, not enough money, scary, you know what I mean? But you do it because it's like, when else am I going to have this fucking opportunity? There's stuff like that all the time. And, when I say scary, sometimes it's a bump, but sometimes it's like going to a locker room you've never been in before with people you've never met. So it's all about overcoming things like that because man, when I overcome like recently, for instance, I debuted at a place up in Massachusetts, entirely new locker room. At the end of the night, I got a payday. It was better than I expected. I did more work on the show than I expected. And the promoter called me like personally to thank me and to congratulate me for doing such a great job. I was
That's
on cloud
awesome.
nine after the fact. I don't get that feeling going to all the places that I go inside my comfort zone all the time.
Hmm.
So that's my number one thing. Get outside your comfort zone and stay there. My other thing is consistency. And this is something I think you might have touched on earlier. I don't know if you said it to me off the air or what, but I'm always putting out content. Always. I'm putting out videos. I put out a vlog every single Monday about my weekend travels. And I tag all the people in the video that I spent the weekend with. All right. Tuesday, I do my podcast, The Outsider's Edge, here on B Plus Player Radio, which I did earlier today that we recorded this. And that's part of my regiment right there. On Wednesdays, I write a blog for bodyslam.net about my career. Right there, you've got a video, you've got audio, you've got something to read. Thursday through Sunday, I'm usually working shows. I'm doing podcasts like this one I'm doing right now. I appear on Center Ring in Connecticut, which is a public access wrestling show that reaches tens of thousands of fans that actually watch that shit, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Like consistency. So that's my thing. Not to rattle on, but like you have to stay consistent. And what I said in my interview with that magazine was this. It's like we are lucky in professional wrestling because the fans have such long-term memories and they're so loyal. They're loyal to people that they connect with. But it's really hard to forge that connection on this monthly basis in a lot of ways that you're connecting with people, because it's not cable television. It's not Monday Night Raw. It's not WWE. You're not going into someone's living room every single Monday and then maybe on Tuesday and then maybe on a pay-per-view. And then you can see me on the fucking network too. In a lot of cases, these people are seeing me once a month or once every 2 months or once every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Because I might work for 37 different promotions, but each one of them is running at different times and they have different audiences.
Right.
So these people, they're having a hard time connecting with me. An easier way to make them connect with me, make them connect with you, whoever I'm giving this advice to, is to produce content every single day, because social media has given us that gift to do that and reach these people every single day. So that's my thing. Stay consistent and stay outside your comfort zone.
Very, very good advice. Totally agree with that. Throughout the interview, you've mentioned a lot of people that we become familiar with, who you say are your close friends. One, Robbie E. Who are you the most grateful for that professional wrestling has brought into your life?
Man, that's like...
Who's your crew?
There's so many people. There's so many people, to be honest. Someone asked me recently on a trip, like, who my personal Mount Rushmore would be. Like,
Oh, that's cool.
Who the people that have helped me in my career would be. And Robbie is definitely on there. Robbie and I have, like, we don't really ride together or talk much anymore. We're both focused on other stuff. But I can't deny what he did for me early on in my career. On top of that, you've got Paul Roma and all the people at Paradise Alley. They, and with Paul Roma would be guys like Mario Mancini, who was the first guy that ever wrestled The Undertaker on cable television. Those are two guys that have helped me immensely. Slick Wagner Brown has been there for me in ways I can't even comprehend. I got to shout out a guy that a lot of people wouldn't know, by the name of Cassidy Haynes.
Mm-hmm.
And Cassidy Haynes, for everyone, I was going to say for people that don't know, for everyone, he owned a website called cheapheat.com. And that was the website that I started working for when I was writing speeches for politicians. And I started writing columns and bullet-pointed essays and all this dumb bullshit for him. And then I graduated and I worked for all these other websites. And it was him who introduced me to Pat Buck. So I started working with Pat Buck on his podcast. And it was through Pat Buck and my relationship with PWS and then WrestlePro that I met Dan Ram and the BBWF. And that's how I got involved with pro wrestling to begin with. So Cassidy Haynes, who now owns bodyslam.net, which hosts my vlog every week, and my blog, my vlog and blog.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working with Capital Wrestling now. They're hosting their show every Monday. Cassidy Haynes is a really important guy in my life as far as wrestling. And I've never said that in public. So that's breaking news for you guys. I could go on, like, every promoter I've ever worked for, Shane Alden, Chris Envy. Joakim Morales is my brother, and I love him so much. There's so many people I could list that, and I feel like I have to stop because if I go right, because say there's 30 people, right?
Uh-huh.
Say there's 30 people I have to thank. If I name 10 of them, then 20 people will be like, well, he only named 10 people. But if I name like 27 or 28 people, then 3 or 2 whatever people are going to be like, what a dick. He forgot the 2 or 3 of us.
How could he
So-
forget? I thought I was
So,
special. I thought we had moments. Obviously,
Exactly.
we didn't.
And I got to thank RoboCop because he played an important part of my career. I know I only worked the one show with him the other night in Pennsylvania, but it was an important night. No, it wasn't. It was just cool to have RoboCop there in 2018.
Yeah, right? Awesome, man. Well, we're wrapping up the year, 2018. How do you think your year went for you?
This was the best year of my life in every single way possible, man. This year, last year I debuted for Evolve, so that was that. But this year I debuted for, I want to guess, like 20 companies, something like that. I'm about to hit my 200th event of my career, and 100, and I think like 15 of those have been this year. So it's just been a really, really busy year for me as far as wrestling goes. I couldn't be happier with the progress that I've made and where I'm going. And personally, this was the year I came out. This was the year that I came out as gay as 20, wow, I wish, at 32 years old. And I'm dating a really cool guy who I really like. It's been a good year, and I just hope 2019 is as good. But I have a feeling it's going to be better. Not to jinx myself.
Do you have any resolutions? Are you someone who believes in New Year's resolutions?
I don't want, I kind of look at New Year's resolutions as like jinxes. Like, I feel like if, I'll jinx myself if I do. But I will say, this might sound ambitious, but I've got the Mark Adam Haggerty 2019 shirts. And those are for Truly Independent Wrestling storyline. That's how I created them for Pro Wrestling Tees, because I'm running for office there. But what it really means, and because that storyline is basically over, what it really means is 2019 is the year that I want to get signed. I am not saying that I have to get signed by WWE, you know what I mean? Or Ring of Honor or Impact or MLW or Lucha Underground I feel like I've been popping up on people's radar in a more substantial way than ever before.
Okay.
And if not signed, I want 2019 to be the year that everyone knows who I am.
Where do you see it now? If you had your choice, where do you see your brand being signed to be the most successful in?
I hesitate to even say, quite frankly, because I have friends everywhere.
Okay.
And I'd be honored to go anywhere, honestly. People always say to me that, it's like, oh, Mark, you're like the most recognizable ring announcer and stuff. And it's like, yeah, maybe in New England, maybe in the Northeast, maybe in New York, whatever. But I want to be that in like Ohio and Chicago and California. You know what I mean? My home state of California, where I've never even performed. Like, that's what I want. And I feel like the way to do that is to link up with one of those major brands. And I feel like 2019 is the year to do it, because I'm peaking and I'm hitting an apex in my career right now. I guess I can say it now. I don't know when the show is going to air, but I will either be debuting or will have just debuted with Chikara by the time this show airs.
That's huge.
So, I feel like when you are peaking, that's when you kind of need to be, kind of on the lookout for the next level or the next place you're going. Because once you peak, the only way to go is down. You know what I mean? And no one wants to be like, hey, sign me, I'm on the descent. That's not a good look. So I'm ambitious, and who knows? 2019 might not be the year. 2020 might not be the year. 2021 might not be the year. But I've been down on myself before as far as my career goes, because wrestlers get signed in like crazy numbers. Hell, they get booked in crazy numbers. I point out to people all the time that a show, like an indie show, is going to have like 20, 30, 60 fucking people on the card, and they're all wrestlers. But they're only going to have one ring announcer. They're only going to have like 2 commentators. Usually one of them is the fucking ring announcer. One of them is usually the owner of the company. You know what I mean? So the opportunities are really few and far between.
Right.
But as my wrestler friends will point out to me, once I, the ring announcer, get in with those companies, like, I'm booked every month. Whereas the wrestlers, there's no guarantee they're getting brought back every month unless they're like the champion or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And also, WWE, Ring of Honor, whomever, they are not signing announcers as frequently as they're signing wrestlers. That's true. However, they could sign me when I'm like 45. You know what I mean? Like
You're right.
they could sign me when I'm 50 because I know I blew a lot of people's minds when I said I was 32 before. I know people were like, "Damn, I thought this dude was like 19." No, I just look really good. Can you imagine how good I'm gonna look when I'm 50? Holy shit! I'm gonna look like a 35-year-old silver fox. I'm gonna look so good. I'm gonna look TV ready. I'm gonna be USA Network or Fox Sports or whatever ready. So I'm just ambitious, and I know my own worth, and I'm happy for everything I have, and I'm excited for the future.
Now we talked this off the air, but I told you sometimes it's a struggle to find that balance between being supportive with your family and pursuing this career that you're pursuing. Is your boyfriend supportive? Is he a wrestling fan?
So I'm not supposed to reveal his identity because he has a real job, like in like a real industry where he helps people. And I don't think he wants to be associated with the craziness that is wrestling. But he is a huge wrestling fan. He actually has a podcast of his own, and it is very successful. He has a YouTube channel with like 10,000 subscribers, and they get like 3,000 views inside of a day, and they sell.
Wow.
It's
Same.
insane
Yeah.
how successful this guy is, and it drives me crazy. What really drives me crazy? No, what really drives me crazy is when I bring him to a show, right? And a fan will run up to us, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up? No, thanks for coming." And they're like, "Who are you? I want to talk to." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" And or the worst was Paul Laporte, who's the general manager of TIW. In storyline, we hate each other, but outside, I love him. I think he's a really good guy. He's at a Dynasty show, and he comes up to me, all right? And I'm just going to say the guy's name is Mr. X. It's not, obviously.
Okay.
But he comes up like a giddy little schoolgirl, and he's like, "Mark, I don't want to be rude, but is your boyfriend Mr. X?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, "Oh my God, I fucking love it." And I was like, "Get out of here. I hate you. You're no longer welcome within my sight." He loves wrestling. I've actually gotten him booked on a few shows as a color commentator and a play-by-play guy.
It's awesome.
Because he does, the that kind of stuff. And I know that sounds like some kind of like, nepotism, whatever, you're getting your boyfriend booked, but like I always say, I walk up in there and I say to the promoter, I'll be like, "Yo, this is him. He does this. If you want to use him, he's here. You don't have to pay him. Cool, awesome." And then, but my attitude is like, if you don't use him, I don't care. He doesn't care. He's going to sit in the audience anyway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that will bring their boyfriend or girlfriend, and they'll be like, "You should use them. And if you don't, I'm going to create problems about what I was booked to do." I'm never going to be that guy because I don't care. Because as he knows, I put my career before absolutely everything. Sadly, usually before him in most cases. But he's very supportive. My family is supportive. They know I've loved wrestling since I was a very, very little child. They don't really get it, but they support it.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. What's next for Mark Adam Haggerty?
Trying to go even more places. As I said, I'm trying to get booked even farther south, even farther west, even farther north. I've worked in Canada before. I'd like to spend more time up there. I also want to say, if people want to follow me on the social media, Twitter and Instagram, you guys can do so at Mark A. Haggerty. That's Mark, like the word M-A-R-K, A. Haggerty, Haggerty. Follow me. My Insta story is like the greatest thing you've ever seen. My highlights are on point. I only post adorable pictures because I'm obsessive compulsive and I want to see what cute guys are like them. That's about it. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And while you're telling me that, I mean, this is going to be breaking news, and I have to congratulate you because when this show airs, you would have just made your Shakara debut. So congratulations. I'm sure everything went according to plan and everybody loved you.
Yeah, let's hope that was the case. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, I love you, man. And you're still the boss at B Plus Player Radio. So thank you very much for bringing us along for this ride. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me on. Hey, it's Mark Adam Haggerty. Stay tuned to the end of the episode for Last Call.
Christmas time is here at last. And Christmas music, right? But are you like me? Do you hear all those Christmas songs and think, gee whiz, they'd be a lot better if sung by my favorite professional wrestling ring announcer? Well, your wishes are soon to be answered. Mark Adam Haggerty is doing Christmas, featuring all of your favorite holiday classics. I'll be home for Christmas. You can plan. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año y felicidad. Oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city. Do they know it's Christmas time at all? Grandma got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as for me and Grandpa, we believe Melakalikimaka is the thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day. That's the island greeting that they'll send to you from the land where palm trees sway. Order now and get Mark Adam Haggerty is doing Hanukkah and Mark Adam Haggerty is doing Kwanzaa absolutely free. A $600 value for only $599.99. Or, if you wanted to buy something that's actually available and is like way less expensive, might I suggest the 2019 12 Months of Mark, my official calendar available at all of my events and online for just $10.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar.
Oh. All right, everybody, Green Man here, and I am back. I am back with Mark Adam Haggerty. Mark, it's pretty simple. It's last call. Rapid fire questions. The first thing that comes to your mind is the first thing you should answer. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever. Let's do it.
All right. What is your favorite adult beverage?
Dr. Pepper. I don't know.
Other than wrestling, what is your favorite sport?
Soccer.
What is the worst job you've ever had?
Every other job I've ever had.
What is your spirit animal?
Zebra.
What's your favorite karaoke song?
Don't Stop Believing.
Good one. Who is your celebrity crush?
IRS.
Who was your mark-out wrestler growing up?
IRS.
What is the weirdest thing you have ever seen in wrestling? And if you say IRS one more time.
I saw RoboCop the other night.
I saw some pictures of that. It's pretty cool. Finally, what is on top of your holiday list?
To get my boyfriend to celebrate the holidays because he hates Christmas.
Oh, bummer. Well, I hope it works out for you. Thank you, Mark, for being part of the show. And again, you can listen to A Shot of Wrestling every Monday on B Plus Player Radio.
Hey, baby, I hear the bell ringing, hip tosses and body slams. Oh, my. And maybe you seem a bit confused. Yeah, baby, but I got you pinned. Ha, 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 ha. But I don't know what to do when I see them with that golden case. They're cashing it in. Authority all in my face. What is a man to do? Good night, everybody.